Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. I am not even going to get into any of the fluff. I mean, straight into it here. It is a busy week of earnings, and there's a ton going on. And this is going to be a packed video. All right, so buckle up. Before the open on Monday, nothing that really interests me. After the close on Monday, now we get going. So IBM, 6 points is what they're looking for. I have traded this pretty frequently, whether it's earnings, swing. I mean, I've done a lot of different things with this over the last couple of years. I don't know what to make of it this quarter. I just gave back a huge pop. This is they announced that they were spinning off a business unit. Um, it has really struggled to get any momentum for months, and I will say there is potential here, right? I think it could have an extended move if they really deliver because you got the spin-off positive, if they can deliver good earnings, positive, and then maybe if it can get through this 200-day, which you can see has been like huge resistance, like a triple whammy. Maybe you get an extended move, and I mean this thing has really underperformed, so I feel like this could be something maybe look at more speculatively. But if it does get going, the option pricing to me doesn't seem bad at all. So, I mean, definitely more speculative, but I'm thinking more of the bull side. For the open on Tuesday, Lockheed Martin. So about, let's say about 13 and a half points is what they're looking for here. At one point we were focused on this and we were trading it quite a bit. But I know it's really just kind of fallen off my radar this year. It's been in a super tight consolidation for about 3 months now, right underneath 400. It is coming off beat and raise quarter. I guess really where my hesitation lies is more with the fact that it just hasn't been as big of a mover recently, just whether just in general or on earnings. So, I feel like it may be something to keep an eye on, especially if it gets through 400. But I don't know if I'm going to take or put an earnings trade on. All right. After the bell on Tuesday, Netflix. So I'm sure everybody has an opinion on this one. They're looking for about 52, 53, somewhere in that ballpark. Definitely one of the biggest reports of the week, if not the biggest. I mean, market cap wise, not the largest, but definitely one of the big ones. Um, Last 2 quarters, it ran into earnings and then sold off after. This quarter, what do you know? It's kind of running into earnings, and now does it make it a clean sweep and sell off after this quarter too? I mean, it's tough because it had such like a good report back in May or April, sold off. Had a good report in July, sold off. So I mean, it seems as though like everybody expects good numbers, it gets good numbers, and then it sells off. I, I obviously I can see that there's like a kind of a triple top forming, and if it's good and it breaks out, there could be a really extended move. It's hard because it just did not move much at all the last couple quarters. So laying out like the 52 to 53 points, I mean, you really need to have confidence that it's going to move because it didn't move much at all the last couple times. So I don't know if I have the confidence. I mean, I think if you do, then this could be one that you look and say, okay, triple top breakout, or if it fails again, maybe it rolls back down to 500. Me personally, I might be leaving it alone just again because I just don't have that confidence. Snap. So actually, an interesting one here. About 3.5 points is what's priced in. Great chart. Strong recent action, and it's hanging under its all-time high, which was like just underneath 30 from like when it just IPO'd. So I think if they can deliver, so this is actually my opinion from last quarter too. If they can deliver and it can get through 30, then there could be a really extended move because that's normally one of the setups I like when stocks trade through their IPO high. So this was like way back when, but the last time the expectations got a little bit too high and that caused it to drop after. So at 3.5 points, I actually think that they kind of leave some room on both sides. So I might look at a volatility strategy, but maybe like skew it more to like the bull side because I think there might be more potential to the upside. Texas Instruments. So about 8 points is what they're looking for. Strong semi. Definitely one of the leading names there right now. Got a boost from NXPI's guidance just recently. It's had a couple decent quarters in a row. I mean, they really weren't blowouts though. It does seem like it can work higher, but it doesn't appear to be a great earnings setup because options are a little bit more expensive. It hasn't really had a big move on a report in a few quarters, so maybe more of like a swing trade idea. Before they open on Wednesday, Biogen. Okay, so you may or may not be familiar with this name. Earnings, they're looking for about 16 points. I don't think they're going to matter much, the earnings and the revenues, because at the beginning of November, on November 6th, there's an Alzheimer's advisory committee meeting, and that's going to be a make or break event for the stock, for the company, for the stock too. And the way like this falls with like earnings just a couple weeks before, I feel like it's just going to be, people are going to be so focused on that November 6th date that they might not move Biogen a lot off of like earnings and revenues. So I'm looking at options after earnings because I think maybe the implied volatility comes out because I too am more focused on that AdCom. But you could, if you wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe you could look at like even calendar spreads where you sell like short-term premium and buy premium through like that advisory committee meeting. Wednesday after the close, a couple big names, actually a few big names. Chipotle. So 90, like 90 to 92 points is what they're looking for. I have not had a whole lot of success with Chipotle this year. I mean, it's definitely been one of the best restaurant stocks, and it's continued to work its way higher. I feel like I just do not trade it well. Just it has my name or my number. Last quarter, sold off after beating, and that might be a problem it has this time, especially after the run it's had. Expectations are just too high. Um, and I mean, that 90 to 92 points, I mean, it's really going to have to be a big move to pay options too. So most likely an avoid for me. There have been some whispers about a possible stock split though, and that could kind of change the pattern. But I mean, obviously we wouldn't know until they announce it. So definitely more speculative. Tesla. So 47 points, give or take, is what's expected here. I do think it's going to be interesting. I feel like there's not too many periods where it goes through like a quiet stretch, and it has been a little bit quieter. And I feel like the charts tightened up, and it's coming off a couple good quarters. So I guess I don't see why this quarter wouldn't be good too. It looks like it's trying to break out, and it would not surprise me to see it get bid up ahead of time. Definitely one of those names where I feel like people like to participate. So I feel like an actual earnings trade will depend on where the stock is day of the report. Because if it's up a lot into earnings, so like over the next couple of sessions, then expectations may be a little bit too high. And we know what happens with high expectations, like right on the battery day, kind of sells off. So I'm more focused on the bull side, but I also, kind of depends on how much of a run the stock has ahead of time. Xilinx. So about 9 points is what's priced in here. I don't think earnings are going to be as big of a story after that AMD approach, and I think most people are probably going to be focused on any sort of commentary around that AMD takeover approach. It could lead to some volatility, but I think actually maybe the AMD options could be a better trade because the premiums probably aren't going to be as elevated. So if I do anything, it might be with AMD options actually. Invisalign is pricing in about 30 points. I've traded this on earnings a couple times in the past. Average move on the report though has been a lot lower recently, past few quarters. Last quarter really was not good at all. I think they missed and got it lower. Stock barely reacted to it though. So it seems like a tougher overall setup, especially with the options pricing in like 30, 30 plus. I mean, it's probably going to be an avoid for me. Lamb. So 24 points is what's priced in here. Coming off being raised in July, stock has had a big comeback, real big comeback. Um, I'd say following its last report, I'd probably lean bullish. And I think if it's good and gets up through 390, then that 400 level could act as a magnet. But I think it's more speculative just because it has really had like a really, really strong move over the last month. So it has been bid up a bit, but you could say 400 may act as a magnet if it gets through 390. So maybe something speculative. LVS, 3 points is what's priced in here. Missed, guided lower last quarter. Stock really has just been lifeless. I mean, it's really not done much of anything at all. Sitting right at key monthly support, which you can see. This doesn't typically have huge moves, but it does seem like there's a potential for a breakdown, and it could be a pretty extended move to the downside if it does lose support as well. So, and maybe you could make the argument volatility strategy works, or maybe even something like on the bear side, just straight up bearish. But that's kind of how I look at that one. CSX. So 3.5 points is what's priced in here. UMP also reports next week. It's later in the week, but this one looks more interesting to me. Let's see if I can scroll out a little bit. It's hanging, you can see, right underneath or right at the 52-week high resistance range. I feel like if it's like a decent print, it could be a pretty big pent-up breakout. KCU, the numbers were okay Friday. They weren't anything special, but maybe, kind of lowers the bar a little bit for CSX, and if they can deliver on top, then you get that move higher plus like a pent-up breakout. So it might be one I look at. AAL, so it was Thursday before the open. AAL, about $1 is what's expected on this. Airlines keep reporting earnings. Stocks still aren't going anywhere. Delta, UAL are reported. They're all still range bound. I mean, I still think that the stimulus negotiations are more important, but I might keep it on watch. I mean, if it does get through like 11, or if it gets above 13.5, 14, it could really go. But a lot of ifs, a lot of buts, and it needs to move before I probably get involved with it. Citrix. So about 8 points is what's priced in here. I actually felt this was one of the better looking setups for a rally ahead of earnings, but stock has had kind of like a roller coaster with the markets this past week. It got punished last quarter, though I feel like the numbers weren't as bad as the move indicated. And you can see it had a real significant run into that. So I was thinking the stock kind of range bound could maybe start making a run. Actually, it wouldn't still surprise me if it made a run, but I mean, I think whether or not I have options into earnings is going to depend whether or not it makes a runner. All right, so maybe even then though, I mean, it has that really clear gap fill on the upside, so it could be one to look at regardless. STM, so another semi, big week for the semis. About 4 points is what's priced in. Those are monthly options though. It's had a solid October already, and they gave preliminary guidance at the beginning of the month. So I think it's kind of tough to expect another big move on the actual report. But it has turned into a leading name, and it might be worth a look for a swing trade after earnings because option pricing probably should drop, especially if the stock doesn't move much. So it could be like a nice swing trade candidate if it sets up after. All right, after the close on Thursday, it was really only two. We'll start with Sam because it's pricing in more, but about 120 points. Those are monthly options, so November monthly options. It popped huge last quarter, huge after a big beat, and it's acted great. I mean, just off its 52-week high. The problem is that like after that monster move, the option pricing has gotten extremely elevated, and expectations are a lot higher now. So I feel like it looks good overall, and it may be set up for higher prices, but like with that type of pricing and the expectations now, it might be one where it makes more sense to wait until after the report comes out, see where the stock is, see what the options are looking like. Maybe you can like look at it for like a swing trade. And then Intel. So again, I mean, big week for semis. Three and a quarter is what's expected here. It was demolished on the July report, but that wasn't necessarily because of earnings and revenues, right? That was because they had a setback in their chip development. Now, I mean, when you look at this chart, you say, "Oh, it's a huge gap," right? I mean, and I feel like that's like a real obvious gap going into earnings. But the problem is, like, I feel like it's hard to expect such a big snapback because, well, unless there's like a major change in their chip development or major surprise in their chip development, right? Because that's what really drove it lower. It does, to me, seem like a decent volatility strategy candidate, but I think only if I can get risk down low enough where it makes sense. Because I mean, I'm thinking like a 2.5 to 3 points type move versus the 3.25 pricing in. So I do think it can move, but I think 3.25 might be a little bit high this time around. Um, but I mean, I think it's one that kind of sets up well for maybe like a trade either way. All right, and then wrapping up the week of Friday before the Open is AXP. So I don't trade this too often, but it actually does kind of look interesting, as you can see when I scroll out what I mean. They're pricing in 4.25, and it hasn't been a great name around earnings, and I think that's why I haven't really traded it much, because it hasn't moved a whole lot. But it is better this time around because it's right at the top of this downtrend, hanging above this key 200A. It's been lagging Visa and MasterCard by a wide margin. I feel like it sets up well to the bull side if they can deliver a good report. Maybe you get a nice little breakout and it can start making a move back towards that June high and start to kind of like reclaim some lost ground. So I feel like I would lean more bullish on it, but it might also be a game time decision for me. All right. So you can see jam-packed week. Things really start to pick up. A lot of big names, a lot of big expected moves. I'm hoping for some fantastic action. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm excited. You guys should be too. All right. So if you like this video and you're looking for more information on earnings trading with options or option swing trading, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options and play. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Rest up, stay well, and I'll talk to you all on Monday.